The email from Blackwood Publishing sat unread in my inbox while my cousins mocked my failed writing career at our family's annual Christmas gathering. If they only knew they were desperately trying to acquire rights to my latest novel. My name is Anna Morgan, though millions of readers know me as A.R. Winter, the mysterious author whose identity has become publishing's biggest secret. My family just knows me as their disappointing relative who wastes time writing stories. Still working on that great American novel, Anna? My cousin James smirked from his position on the leather sofa. As CEO of Blackwood Publishing, he never missed a chance to remind everyone of his success. Or have you finally decided to get a real job? I took a sip of wine, thinking about the seven-figure offers sitting in my agent's inbox, including one from Blackwood that James had personally signed. But I kept quiet, just as I have for the past 3 years. Anna, my Aunt Margaret sighed, we're just concerned. You can't keep living in that tiny apartment, working at the bookstore, dreaming about being a writer. Look at James and Olivia, they've made something of themselves. I glanced at my cousins, James with his publishing empire, Olivia with her literary agency. Both of them had inherited their positions in the family business, Blackwood Publishing, founded by my Uncle Robert. Both of them had rejected my manuscript 5 years ago without even reading it. The bookstore pays the bills, I said quietly, remembering the day everything changed. I'd been shelving books at the Dusty Spine, the small independent bookstore where I worked, when I got the idea for what would become my first bestseller. The store's owner, Eleanor Chin, found me scribbling in my notebook during my lunch break. Instead of scolding me, she sat down and asked about my story. That conversation changed my life. You need a pen name, Eleanor had said after reading my first chapters. Something mysterious, something that makes people wonder. She was right. A.R. Winter was born that day, and my first novel, Shadows of Yesterday, took the publishing world by storm. No one knew the author's identity. My contract specified complete anonymity, with all communications handled through Eleanor, who had become my manager. Have you read the new A.R. Winter book? Olivia asked James, pulling me back to the present. Everyone's talking about it. We've made 3 offers, but their agent won't even take our calls. I hid my smile behind my wine glass. Olivia's agency had actually made 4 offers, each higher than the last. Whoever they are, they're being ridiculous, James growled. Every publisher in New York wants that book. The film rights alone would be worth millions. If only they knew they were talking about the manuscript they'd thrown in the reject pile 5 years ago. The same story, just with a different title and a mysterious author's name. Maybe they're waiting for the right offer, I suggested mildly. James laughed. What would you know about publishing deals, Anna? You can barely get your stories posted on those free writing websites. That was their perception of me, the failed writer who posted stories online while working a dead-end job. They had no idea that A.R. Winter's online presence was carefully crafted misdirection, building anticipation for each new release. Speaking of publishing, my Uncle Robert joined the conversation. James tells me your little bookstore might have to close soon. Such a shame. My hands tightened around my glass. The Dusty Spine was struggling, not because of poor business, but because Blackwood Publishing had bought the building and was raising the rent to impossible levels. They wanted to turn it into another chain bookstore. We're doing fine, I said, though my heart ached. Eleanor was in her 70s now, and the stress of fighting the rent increases was taking its toll. You should let us help you find a real position, Olivia offered with fake sympathy. Blackwood always needs people in the mailroom. I thought about the manuscript sitting in my laptop bag, the final book in my trilogy, the one every publisher in New York was fighting over. The one that would expose corruption in the publishing industry based on everything I'd seen working at the Dusty Spine. Actually, I said, standing up, I should get back to the store. Eleanor needs help with inventory. On Christmas Eve, James rolled his eyes. That's sad, even for you, Anna. I left them to their expensive wines and self-congratulation, driving my old Honda back to the Dusty Spine. Eleanor was waiting, a knowing smile on her face. How was the family gathering? She asked, pouring us both tea in her office above the store. They're still trying to buy your building, I told her. And they're desperate to get the rights to A.R. Winter's new book. She laughed, the sound warm and knowing. If they only knew their failed writer cousin was the one they were begging to sign with them. I pulled out my laptop, opening the manuscript that would change everything. The final book is ready. Are you sure you want to do this? Eleanor's eyes sparkled with mischief. Expose how big publishers crush independent bookstores while exploiting authors. My dear, I've been waiting for this moment for 40 years. We had planned it carefully. The first 2 books in my trilogy had built a massive following, with readers desperate to know how the story ended. The final book would reveal how the villain, a publishing mogul who destroyed independent bookstores, was based on real events. Blackwood made another offer today, I said, checking my email. 8 figures, plus film rights. And I'm going to turn them down. Again. Eleanor nodded approvingly. They never understood, did they? That success isn't just about money. It's about telling the truth, even when the truth hurts. I thought about James and Olivia, about how they laughed at my dreams while sitting in offices their father had given them. They thought being born into publishing royalty made them experts on good writing. The advance copies go out next week, I said. Once the reviews start coming in, they'll realize they're the villains in their own story, Eleanor finished. And the best part? They'll have to sell it in their bookstores anyway, because their shareholders won't let them ignore the biggest release of the year. My phone buzzed. Another email from James, marked urgent. Another offer, this one even higher. He was getting desperate. Your cousins are about to learn a very expensive lesson, Eleanor said, reading over my shoulder. Never underestimate a writer with a story to tell. I closed my laptop, thinking about the launch party planned for next month. A.R. Winter would finally be revealed, not at some fancy Manhattan publishing house, but at the Dusty Spine. They're not going to know what hit them, I said quietly. Eleanor squeezed my hand. That's the beauty of it, my dear. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late to stop it. She was right. The wheels were already in motion, and soon the entire publishing world would know exactly who A.R. Winter was, and why she had chosen to tell this particular story. The best revenge, after all, isn't served cold. It's published in hardcover, with your cousin's company logo on the spine. The day everything changed started normally enough. I was shelving books at the Dusty Spine when James burst through the door, his designer suit looking oddly out of place among our worn wooden shelves. "Where's the old lady?" he demanded, clutching a copy of Publishers Weekly. "We need to talk about selling this place. Now." Eleanor emerged from her office, calm as ever. James Blackwood. "To what do we owe this pleasure?" He thrust the magazine at her. "Your rent problems are solved. Name your price for the building. Any price." I picked up the magazine he dropped. There it was, the announcement I'd been waiting for. A.R. Winter's final book launch set for independent bookstore. The Dusty Spine has been chosen as the exclusive venue for A.R. Winter's first and only public appearance, Eleanor said smoothly. "Quite an honor, don't you think?" James's face reddened. "This is impossible. That launch belongs at Blackwood's flagship store. We've offered millions for the rights." "And yet," Eleanor smiled, "A.R. Winter chose us. Small world, isn't it?" I continued shelving books, hiding my smile as James made call after call, trying to change the venue. But the contracts were already signed, the press releases sent. The biggest literary event of the year would happen right here, in the store his company had tried to destroy. "Anna," he finally noticed me, "don't you have somewhere else to be? This is a private business discussion." I checked my watch. "Actually, I do. I have a meeting about my new book." He snorted. "Finally writing children's stories where you belong." "Something like that," I said, picking up my laptop bag. As I passed Eleanor, she gave me a tiny wink. The meeting was with my agent, finalizing details for the revelation that would shake the publishing world. My final book wasn't just the conclusion of a trilogy, it was an expose of the industry itself, wrapped in a compelling narrative that would keep readers up all night. Blackwood Publishing's stock dropped again. My agent informed me, "They're desperate for a hit. Your cousin's jobs are on the line." How desperate? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Desperate enough to sign a contract without reading the book first. They're that confident A.R. Winter can save their company. I pulled out the contract they'd sent, the one offering unprecedented terms for a book they hadn't seen. Let's give them exactly what they want. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. The Dusty Spine was transformed, though we kept its essential character. Every major media outlet requested coverage of the revelation. Betting pools started on A.R. Winter's identity, with theories ranging from famous actors to reclusive billionaires. The morning of the event, I arrived early to find James and Olivia already there, arguing with Eleanor. "We have a right to know who they are before the announcement," Olivia insisted. "We're their publisher. The contract specifically states the publisher learns the author's identity along with everyone else," Eleanor replied calmly. "Unless you want to breach the agreement." They backed down. They couldn't risk losing the book now. Their jobs depended on its success. As the store filled with journalists, industry executives, and lucky readers who'd won tickets to the event, I slipped upstairs to change. The simple bookstore clerk's clothes were replaced by a tailored suit. When I looked in the mirror, I finally saw myself as both Anna Morgan and A.R. Winter. No more hiding. Eleanor took the podium at exactly noon. "Welcome to a historic moment in publishing. Today, A.R. Winter will not only reveal their identity, but will read the first chapter of their new book, a story that will change how we see the publishing industry forever." I watched from the back as she continued. "But first, let me tell you a story about a young writer who came to work in my bookstore. A writer whose manuscript was rejected by every major publisher, including some in this room." James and Olivia shifted uncomfortably in their front row seats. This writer didn't give up. Instead, she watched and learned as those same publishers tried to destroy independent bookstores like ours. She turned that experience into something extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome A.R. Winter, or as some of you know her, Anna Morgan. The silence was absolute as I walked to the podium. James's face went pale. Olivia dropped her phone. "Hello, cousins," I said into the microphone. "Surprised to see me?" The room erupted in chaos. Journalists started shouting questions. Cameras flashed, but I kept my eyes on my family. "The final book in the trilogy is called Empire of Pages," I continued. "It's about a young bookseller who discovers how major publishers conspire to destroy independent bookstores. Every event in the book is based on real documents, real emails, real conversations. Some of you may recognize yourselves in these pages." I opened the manuscript and began to read. With each word, I watched the blood drain from James and Olivia's faces as they recognized their own schemes laid bare. "You can't publish this." James stood up, his voice shaking. "We have a contract." "Yes, you do," I agreed. "A contract you signed without reading the book. A contract that gives me complete creative control and protection against litigation as long as everything I've written is true." "Is it true, James?" He sank back into his seat. The media coverage was immediate and explosive. Publishing Harris' secret behind best-selling trilogy. A.R. Winter exposes industry corruption. Blackwood Publishing in crisis as tell-all book reveals dark practices. The book debuted at #1. Independent bookstores across the country held midnight release parties. The Dusty Spine became a tourist attraction, with readers traveling from around the world to visit the store that sparked the story. Blackwood Publishing's board of directors called an emergency meeting. By the end of the week, James and Olivia had been removed from their positions. The company announced a new initiative supporting independent bookstores, trying desperately to salvage their reputation. Was it worth the wait? Eleanor asked me one evening as we sat in her office counting pre-orders. I looked around at the store we'd saved, thought about the other independent bookstores that would survive because of what we'd exposed. "Every second," I replied. "My family doesn't hold Christmas gatherings anymore." James took a job at a small literary agency in Boston. Olivia started her own publishing consultation firm, though most major publishers won't work with her. The Dusty Spine is thriving. I bought the building with my royalties, ensuring it will remain an independent bookstore forever. Eleanor still works the register sometimes, telling customers the story of how a failed writer became the industry's biggest success. Last week, a young girl came into the store clutching a notebook full of stories. I recognized that look in her eyes, the same one I had all those years ago. "Keep writing," I told her, signing her copy of my book. "And remember, sometimes the best stories are the ones waiting to be told." As for A.R. Winter, she's working on a new series. This time, I'm not hiding who I am. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in getting revenge, but in proving that success comes in many forms, even from behind the shelves of a dusty old bookstore. The best stories, after all, are the ones that remind us that truth, like the best written characters, eventually finds its way to the light.